Hey everyone, Chris Mattson here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make an assembly in SolidWorks. I'm going to give you lots of tips and tricks to help you through the process. Let's do it. All right, so what we're going to do in this video is we are going to create this assembly, which is a pair of digital calipers. We'll show how to make this assembly. A number of things going on here. We have this part is left free to slide, just like a real pair of digital calipers. I have these calipers right here, by the way. And we're gonna just show how this can be done. So the first thing we wanna do is we wanna start a new assembly. So File, New, and you can see we can make a part, an assembly, or a drawing. We're gonna make an assembly. And as we make this new assembly, pretty much one of the first things we wanna do is we want to get our first part that's going to be in there. And the part that I'm going to start with is my base part. Oops, base part. And frankly, I should be telling you outright about my strategy. I've gone through a strategy on how I'm gonna do this. I'll basically, I guess, show you with this thing. I'm first gonna get the base part in there, which is this thing, and the ruler, which is the colored part right here. And then I am going to construct this entire unit that slides back and forth as a separate sub-assembly. And then I'll assemble it to this base part. And then I'll put in these little rivets that are down here at the end that hold the whole thing together. I've chosen to do it that way because I believe that's how it would be done on an assembly line while manufacturing it. So first thing I have in here is my base part. It's in there. It's now been just placed in space. I just click and it puts it in space. There's an F by it in the name in the design tree showing that it is fixed in space. I want to make sure I'm in the units I want to be in. So down here I'm in millimeters, grams, seconds. And then I want to go in here and save this. And let's save this as caliper assembly demo. Okay, and now I'm gonna start putting other parts in here. I'm gonna go to Insert Component, which is right up here. And if my component is already open, it will appear right here in the open documents. The one that I want to assemble does not appear there, so I will go browse for it. And what I'm looking for here is my ruler. And I'm gonna bring my ruler in. And you can see my ruler is that part that's right there. And I get to now constrain its degrees of freedom. So I know that when my caliper is oriented like this, I will have, I'll have to have my ruler work in a certain way. So I want this face of the ruler to be coincident with this part on the base. So I've clicked one, held shift, clicked the other. When I unclick shift, my mate options pop up and I'm going to choose my coincident there. By the way, there's a shadow lurking around here and I don't like it. So if you actually ever want to turn these off, go over to the beach ball that's over here, go into the one that is right here. It says View Scene. I'm gonna right click on Scene and take off my floor shadows. That will make it a little bit easier for you to see what's going on, okay? All right, so now I have this ruler in here and it can move along. It's staying on the same plane as this face because I've constrained that, but otherwise it's moving just sort of anywhere around there. So there's multiple things I can do to take more degrees of freedom away, but I do happen to know that I'm gonna put a rivet in this hole and this hole and this hole and this hole. Therefore, what I really wanna do is I wanna get these holes to be concentric with each other. All right, so now I've got that. It's actually showing as in the right spot, but it shows underdefined down here at the bottom. And how is it underdefined? If I grab the thing, I'll find out how it's underdefined. Okay, I still need another degree of freedom in here. So I'm gonna pick this one and hold shift and pick this one and let go of shift and I get some options. I want this to be concentric. Now I'm fully defined. Down here at the bottom it says fully defined and this base now has the ruler embedded in it. So I'm going to save this. This is going to be one of my sub-assemblies. And that's, first of all, how you do one single basic assembly. Now I'm going to go on and do a couple of other ones. Okay, I'm going to create a new assembly. This one's going to be have the top jaw and some other things like that. And I've chosen in my strategy, which I wrote down before, I am going to do this plastic readout shell. Okay, this is going to be the base part that I start with. This base part's going to be good for me because I got to put all my buttons in here and my screen in there. And then I'll put the right jaw and the depth gauge and the wheel right here. So first thing I'm going to go for here is getting in, making sure I'm in the right dimensions, which is, right units, excuse me, is millimeters. That's what we're seeing right down there. And then also, I want to come up here and save this, just so that I'm being clean in this. So this would be caliper electronics. That's going to be my sub-assembly, is my caliper electronics. All right. So now to put in components, I go to the Insert Component button right here, and then I go browse for the thing that I want. And the thing that I want is, maybe it's called electronics. I'm not sure if it is. Let's see if it is. Okay, so first of all, that is looking like the right kind of document, but it's not the version I want here because I'm looking for one that actually has the digital readout on it. So what I want to do is actually just go over here and delete this right in the design tree. I'm just going to delete it, and I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to go find the part I actually want, which is, forgive me for a second, it's not that, it's the screen. This is what I want, screen. Oh yeah, there's my screen. That's what I want. Okay, so as far as the screen goes, there are some features in here. You don't need to know this, but you should pay attention to how your parts are being made. When you make your parts, these parts are already made, so there's a lip here, and that lip is going to rest on the inside of this face when it is assembled. So I've clicked on one, then I'm holding shift and I click on the other one, then I let go of shift and I can tell it what relationship I want. And in this case, I've told it I want it to be coincident. Now, interestingly, that's lined up, that's lined up just the way I want it, and now it will move around being in that same plane. And I need to get this thing to go right in here somewhere. Okay. And I can see that I'm going to need to have a little gap all the way around the edge. So I'm going to show you how to do that kind of mate. I already know what that distance needs to be. So I will click this face and then hold shift, and I will click this face and I will let go of shift and get these options. And I want to pick this one right here, which is to set these away at a distance. And they need to be 0.127 inches away from each other. Okay, and that's going to remove now one more degree of freedom. So I still have a minus sign over here. I still have an underdefined down here, which means I'm not fully constrained yet. And if I grab it, it will show me in which area it is not constrained. So now I need to do just the same thing I did a second ago, except I'm going to do it on this other surface. So I grab the surface that I want, hold shift. Okay, I'm taking that back. I'm first going to rotate around, then hold shift, then click the other surface that I want, then let go of shift, and I'm going to get the distance that I want here, 0.127. Great. So this thing is now centered just as we want it. I'm going to save that. Still more to do, but I like to save in between major operations. Now I'm going to stick the buttons in there. Great. Let's go to Insert Component. Let's go now find the button. Button. Here it is. Now, interestingly, the button is made with multiple configurations. You can see this configuration key right down here. It says there's a green button, a black button, a default button, a yellow button, and a gray button. I'm going to just pick the green button here for a second, and I'll show you what you can do with this. This is how you handle having different button configurations in different spots on your model. Here's my button. My button is going to have this face, it's going to be lined up with this face, and I'm holding shift, clicking this face, letting go of shift, saying that this needs to be coincident. Okay, now that's just about right. Now I'm going to come in here and put some more constraints on it. I'm going to make this circle concentric with this circle. That's going to line up that nice, but I still have a minus sign here. Why? If I'm not sure, I grab it. Okay, this thing would rotate around. I don't want it to rotate around. So I'm going to grab this surface and hold shift and grab this surface and let go and tell it I want that to be coincident. And now my part is fully defined and in space, and we are all good, nice and happy. So we're going to save that because it's a major operation, like to do that. Now what we're going to do, because we got 4 of these, instead of having to do that 4 times, let's just make a pattern, an assembly pattern. So I'm going to click on my button to highlight it, say that that's what I want, and then I'm going to go over to my linear component patterns, which are right up here, and I am going to choose some directions for this whole thing. Okay, so if I happen to have flat planes on this part, I could use that, or a smarter way to do it is to actually use the planes that we have, so that we're referencing off of that. So one of my directions needs to be, so it's kind of hard to see that plane. Okay. One of my directions needs to be this plane, this right plane. How can I get that? Did I select it? No, I did not select that. So let's delete that, clear selection. Right plane, come on, right plane. Okay, if you're having trouble with this kind of thing, one of the things you can do is right click on, let's just get out of here for a second. Let's hide this component. I'm going to right click on it and hide it. That's going to get me to this edge of this plane, which is what I wanted to see. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do here is go back to my, so one thing actually I can do while I'm here is I can make this bigger, which will make it easier for me to see. Now I can right click back over on the tree, right click, and hit the eyeball button for that part to come back, and I see the plane, so that's more helpful for me. So now I need to go back and do the linear pattern that I was trying to do, so I click my button, go to my linear pattern. My direction that I want to do is this one, and you can see there's a preview of the part right there. I want this distance to be 13.208. Okay, and you can see it's now popped it over that other hole. And then I want to have a second direction. My second direction is going to go in the direction of this top plane, and that one needs to go 20.828. And we can see those parts are right there, so we're going to accept that. Now I'm going to just turn off these planes to get a little bit of a cleaner view. And now we see we have 4 buttons in there, and that's great. The problem is you can't necessarily see it in my thing right here, but these buttons are different colors, green, yellow, gray, and black. So we need to go in and manipulate this. And I want to show you how to do that right now. This is a useful command to learn. Okay, so I have the 4 buttons. There's only one button that appears in the tree right here, but the other buttons are embedded under this local pattern right here. I'm going to click on one of them, and that's that one. And I can see that this one needs to become the gray button. So the way that I do this is right click on it, come down here into configure component. In configure component, I'm going to choose configuration gray, and I'm going to hit OK, and now that button is a gray button. Likewise, I'm going to come down to this button, and I'm going to change its configuration, and this one needs to become yellow. So I'm going to choose yellow, say OK. Now that's a yellow button, and this button needs to become black. So I'm going to right click on it, get to configure component, switch over here to black, and we are set. We just got all of our buttons in there in the different configurations, but we only had to do one sort of assembly operation. Well, the original one and then the pattern. So saving that. Okay. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to pop in the right. I'm going to pop in another part now. I'm going to insert this and get the right jaw in here. Right jaw is right here. right jaw. Okay, here's what my right jaw looks like. And you don't need to know these kinds of things, but you need to know how you were designing it if you did it. And I created these parts, so I happen to know that I want this to be concentric with this. So I'm going to make it concentric. That's great. It is concentric, but it also can move around. So I've got to constrain some other things. Okay, I want the top of this to be constrained to the bottom of this. Great, excellent. All right, and now we have almost there, but it can spin around like this. I'm going to get this back plane right here to be parallel to this plane that's here. Okay, that didn't work the way I wanted it to. Click this, unclick, unclick shift, and then I get myself nice and parallel. Okay, so now we're building this thing out. We have a few more things we need to pop in here. We need to pop the screw in here and then a thumb thing that goes right here. Plus, actually, we need to do one other piece, which is called the depth gauge. So let's save this, be in the practice of saving. And let's come over here and insert new component. And the component we want to add is our depth gauge. Okay, and the way this depth gauge works is I have to put it behind this thing. So it's going to be helpful for me to right click on this and say to hide this. Might even be useful for me to come into this one, which is clear. This part's clear, so it's sort of picking the part behind it. But if I get to a spot where there's nothing behind it, I can try to hide this one. Okay, there's a hiding. Okay. Other thing I could do is I could hide it over here in the design tree if I wanted to. Now I got to get the depth gauge in here. So this little cylinder needs to become concentric with this little cylinder. So holding shift, letting go of shift, find the concentric button. Okay, now this is great. I wanted to make sure I could show you how this works. This is, it's backwards. So the way I can fix the backwardsness of this is I can go to my depth gauge, open it up. I can look at my mates. There's one mate that's in there now. I can go in and edit it or right click on it and I can say flip mate alignment. And when I flip mate alignment, now it puts it on the side that I wanted it to be on. Okay. So now we have a few more things we need to do here. I need this surface. Now I'm holding shift and click this surface and let go. I need these to be coincident. And then I need this surface and holding shift and clicking this surface and letting go. I need this to be parallel. This is how the depth gauge looks. Okay, so let's hit save on this. Save. Okay, now we can come over here to our screen and we can right click on it and unhide it. We can come to our plastic front and we can unhide it. And we've just got two more things to do here. We're going to insert our thumb screw, not the thumb reel, the, what is this called? Lock screw. Okay, here's our lock screw. The shaft of the screw is going to be concentric with the shaft here. Okay, now it's gone down into the part, which makes it, impossible to see. So I need to come in here and right click on this and hide this thing. And there's my guy way down there. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to say that this plane, holding shift, and this need to be offset by some distance. And I'll just say 1 millimeter. All right. So what we can do now is we can adjust that in a minute if we need to, based on what will happen when we put our plastic back up here. Yeah, so now my part's like intersecting with my plastic. So that's not great. So I'm gonna go adjust the locking screw. I'm gonna open it up and I'm gonna open the mates, and here's my distance. I'm gonna right click on it. I'm gonna edit it. And before, remember it was 1 millimeter, I'm gonna make it 2 millimeters. All right. Then I'm gonna come in and look, and I can see there's a nice gap in there. That's great. Now the thumb screw is one that rotates. So I actually pretty much wanna leave that free so that it rotates. That means I'm gonna have an underdefined product, but that underdefined assembly is going to be underdefined in the way that I expect it to be underdefined. What I'm gonna do now is add in our thumb wheel. Thumb wheel, got my thumb wheel that's right here. And the way the thumb wheel works is that this shaft, holding shift now and clicking this part and letting go of shift, this is concentric. Okay. And then this needs to get put somewhere right in the middle like that. But it needs that definition. So come down here, just sort of look in here for a second. I'm gonna get this face, hold shift, excuse me, not hold shift yet, rotate. It's kind of hard to see. I'm gonna click this one and unclick my shift, and I need this to be offset by a distance. We'll just take the distance that it had given us. Okay, this one is also underdefined, as you can see in the design tree, but it's underdefined because this one also should be a spinner. So I'm gonna keep that, save this thing. This is my electronics assembly, rebuild and save. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start a brand new assembly where I pulled together my two sub-assemblies. Okay, and one of them was my assembly demo, I think we called it, yep. That one's in there now as my base part. And now I'm gonna insert another part, and I'm gonna insert my caliper electronics, and that's this one. Okay, and there's a few things going on here that we need to get all nice and worked up. This face needs to be coincident with this face. Okay, let's see, how did that work? Great. Okay, then this is gonna have to fit up here somewhere. This face and this face need to become coincident. And now it's free to move like this, but not in any other way. So this is actually how I want this to be. I can come down here and sort of see if that's looking the way a pair of calipers should. Okay, great. And we have this horrible shadow on there. So we're gonna go back over here and show you how to do that again. Go back into the beach ball, go into the scene button, right click on the scene button, take off the floor shadows, and things will look a lot better. Okay, so we're looking pretty good here, except that we need to go work on this little part that's right down here, these rivets that go in here. Okay, so we're going to now insert a component, and we're gonna go with the bottom securing plate first. The way the bottom securing plate works is that it's gonna go right down here on the bottom. So we're gonna get this face and unclick shift and say that needs to be coincident. Now notice the orientation of this. I really need this to be flipped around. So I'm gonna grab this circle and this one and say that those need to be concentric, and then I can rotate that around and grab this one, hit shift, grab this one, let go, and say that that's concentric. And now this thing is fully defined. Now we're gonna get the top one in there. So insert component, browse, top securing plate, grab it. Excellent, we're gonna do the same sort of exact thing that we did here. I'm gonna grab this, and I'm gonna grab this face. And frankly, I'm not sure which one it is. I'm gonna grab this one and then the top of the ruler, maybe, and say that that needs to be concentric. Excuse me, not concentric, but coincident. Then I'm gonna grab this one and say that needs to be concentric. And I'm gonna grab this one and the one right underneath it, and this one and this one, and say that those need to be concentric. And now that part is fully defined. So my top securing plate and my bottom securing plate, they need to be held together now by some rivets. So, oops, wrong one again. Let's get to the open components. We're gonna come down here to rivet. Where is rivet? Here it is, rivet. Grab that. Okay, my rivet, this shank, needs to be coincident, or not coincident, but concentric with this. Excellent. Okay, now I need to constrain its movement in this direction I just did. So this face, shift, click this, and let go of shift. This needs to be coincident. And this is still underdefined because it's a rivet that can rotate around. So let's go see what's going on with that one. Here's our rivet. Here's our mates. Here's a concentricity. We want to lock that one so that it won't rotate anymore, so that we're fully defined. A rivet's going to be held tight so it won't really rotate. So I like to make sure that it's taken care of that way. All right, what we can do now is we got another one of these. We can just make a pattern. And you might, maybe just popping in another one is good. Maybe making a pattern is good. This has gone off in the wrong direction, but if I flip this button, it goes to the direction that I want it to. And I can set this number, which it is 8.128. And there is my rivet stuck in place. And we have created the full assembly of this. We've left unconstrained the things that we care about. This, the rotator up here, which I can't do in this assembly actually. In the sub-assembly, I could rotate this if I wanted to. But in this one, I can just do this. Okay, so that is how we do an assembly in SolidWorks. We learned a handful of things, basic assembly operations. We learned how to get up the mate features, click one thing, then hit shift, then click another thing, then unclick shift, and you get your features that you want to, your relationships that you want to have in there. We talked about patterns. We did patterns. We talked about configurations within patterns. We talked about how we could get all those buttons on there, and then after they were assembled, change the colors. We also showed that there were some things we wanted to leave unconstrained because they were representative of movement in our machine, so to speak. And then also the other thing that we did was, what else did we do? We did some sub-assemblies. We showed how we would put the thing together in sub-assemblies. Now there might have been a variety of different sub-assemblies you would have chosen. I chose the ones that I thought were representative of the actual manufacturing process. Okay, hope that helps. Wish you the best. Good luck on everything you gotta do.